All right, so we're going to talk today about the part number 3 because part number three has something to do with part number 2. So in other words, like part number 3 will be roughly based on part number 2. Part number 2. So you have 4 up to 5 minutes. So it is like a discussion. 4 up to 5 minutes. So respond to the examiner's questions related to your topic in part 2 for 4 up to 5 minutes. So you're going to answer the questions like that have something to do with topic in part number 2. You are allowed to ask the examiner to repeat or rephrase the question. So in this part, you can talk to the examiner to repeat the question again. So that's fine, but not a lot, but actually that's fine. Because part number 1, the questions are going to be easy. So when you always ask that you need to rephrase the question or the question needs to be rephrased, you will understand, the examiner will understand that your English is weak. But actually in part number 3, yeah, because the questions are quite difficult. So yeah, so you can ask for repeating the question again and again. So you can ask a checking question like, are you asking me about? Are you asking me about? All right, so the suggestions, give extended responses. Here you need to talk. Okay, so try to be talkative. خليك إنسان ثرثار هنا. So you need to talk. Part number 1, actually 4 up to 5 sentences for each question. Here actually it depends. Like if there are 4 sentences, it will be the double here, like 6 and above, like 6, 7 sentences. You can talk about the question. Actually, if you reach to level like 4 up to 6 sentences, that will be great. Like twice long as in part 1 of the test. So you want answers that are about 4 up to 6 sentences. Try to support your main points by adding details, giving explanations, or giving examples. All right, try to explain by giving some details and examples. If you are really stuck about how to answer a question, don't sit there in silence. You can say, gosh, or oh my God. That's a tricky question. I've never thought about that before. And then you just try to give yourself some time to think about the question. Try to give some sort of answer. If you can't, then just tell the examiner. If you can't and you didn't understand, so just tell the examiner, because the worst thing actually is to sit in silence and like the examiner will be a bit annoyed. So here, so like this part of the task lasts for 4 up to 5 minutes. Okay, this is like number 1. And consists of questions roughly based on topic area of part number 2. But actually it is much more details. Okay, and this part actually is called discussion. It will be a discussion about part number 2, which is called long term. Usually you will be asked 2 or 3 questions on 2 different topics. There will be 2 different topics. There are 2 questions relating to each topic or site. The major difference with this part of the exam is that you are asked questions about people in general. So we can say that part number 1, the questions are going to be about you. Part number 3, the questions are going to be about the people, the society, المجتمع والناس, rather than about yourself. This can be more challenging. Yeah, it is challenging when you talk about people. Essentially, it is more difficult to talk about other people than it is about ourselves. Sometimes if somebody asks you about yourself, you think it is quite easy for you actually to answer the question or the questions. But actually when I ask you about some other people, I think it will be more or less difficult. Another key difference that the examiners are able to ask their own questions here. they are going to ask you, they are called follow-up questions. بناء على إجابتك الإكزامينر ممكن يسألك على نفس النمط على بناء على إجابتك، والإكزامينر أيضا ممكن أن يسألك أسئلة من عقله أو يعني من ذاته هو، لأنه في البارت نمبر 1 لازم يسألك من الليست القائمة حق الأسئلة، لكن البارت نمبر 3 no. Able to ask their questions, and they are not limited to the question written like in their book, like in other parts of the exam. In this part, the examiner may push you hard to see the boundaries of your ability. يضغط عليك بالquestions والأسئلة عشان يعرف حدودك في اللغة وينك يعني وين مستواك. So you may feel this part is the most difficult. It is called the discussion section because the examiner follows some of your answers with a follow-up questions, that is based on the answer you just gave. الإجابة عادة يسألك على الإجابة التي لسه قلتها، فأسئلة متواترة يعني. طيب البروسيجر الexaminer will introduce part number 3 by saying we have been talking about، وبعدين يقول لك الموضوع اللي في الجزء الثاني أو في part number 2. Now I would like to ask you a few general questions about that. Maybe you will say, are you ready? Then the examiner will introduce the topic more specifically. We'll say, now let's talk about any topic. For example, let's talk about shopping in your country. في بلدك. خلاص إذا نتكلم عن الناس والحياة والشوبينج بشكل عام. مو عليك أنت وهل تحب التسوق أو لا. لا، على الشوبينج بشكل عام. The examiner will then ask you 2 or 3 questions related to this specific topic. مثلا, what are some of the different types of places where people can go shopping in your country? Do you think people spend more time shopping these days than they did in the past? Do you think this is a positive trend or negative one? Like, أسئلة على الحياة بشكل أعمق يعني. The examiner will move into the second specific topic and ask 2 or 3 questions about this. For example, let's move on and talk about موضوع ثاني. After 4 to 5 minutes, like 4 up to 5 minutes, the examiner will end the exam by saying, thank you. This is the end of speaking exam. This is the end of speaking exam. You should thank the examiner and leave the exam room. أشكره وخرجت على طول. You could say something like, thank you. I appreciate your time. هذا ممكن تحفظها. I appreciate your time. Okay, هذا بعد ما تخرج. And then try to smile at the examiner and then leave the room. خلاص تسمى مخرج. Don't do any of the following. لا تسويش هذا الشيء في نهاية الامتحان. 1. Have any further conversation with the examiner unless the examiner initiates it. Don't talk anymore with the examiner if he says like, this is the end of part number 3 and also the IELTS exam, the IELTS speaking exam. So you need to say, thank you, sir. Thank you, Ms. I appreciate your time. And then you start smiling and then leaving the room. Don't talk like with the examiner. Don't apologize for poor English. لأنه بعض واحد يقول لك أنا والله لخبط اعذرني أنا ما كنت اليوم توترت وكذا. Don't say like this. And also don't ask the examiner what the score is. Okay, can you tell me, did I do well? What is my score? What is the mark? Don't ask them. Try to explain any mistakes that you have made. تقول لنا كان قصدي أقول لك في الجملة هذه كأنه كذا كذا. خلاص قفل الموضوع. After you leave the exam room, don't forget to collect any of your belongings, like if you have left items outside the exam room. عندك أوراق أو مثلا حاجة أو شيء جوالك أو حاجة مثلا خذها معك. هذه كانت ملاحظات على انتهاء الامتحان بعد. إذن part number 3 is going to be about like questions about the area of part number 2, but actually deep questions. And the questions are going to be about the society, about the people. You have 2 different sets. Every set has 3 to 4 questions. And in this task, you need to talk a lot. Okay, talk freely. Try to talk for 6, 7 sentences for each question because it is a discussion. In this part also, you can ask the examiner to repeat the question once, twice, thrice. It's okay, but not more. I know it's okay, but don't ask more. Try just where it is necessary. Because part number 1, you are allowed to be asked or to ask the examiner just only once or twice فقط. لكن في البارت 3 ممكن تسأل مرتين أو 3 إنك ما فهمت تعيد السؤال. وأيضا الإكزامينر ممكن يعيد لك صياغة السؤال. في التاسك نمبر 1 ما في إعادة صياغة السؤال، يعيد لك السؤال بس. I'm sorry, I didn't quite catch that. Could you repeat the question again? He will say, what's blah blah blah. نفس السؤال بس ما يغير ولا شيء. لكن في question number 3 we can say, I'm sorry, I didn't understand. Could you please rephrase the question? راح يعيد لك صياغة السؤال بطريقة ثانية. Buy time to think. One of the biggest problems in the part of the test is that the questions can be quite challenging. You may struggle to think of what you want to say. يعني ربما راح يكون عندك صعوبة ما تعرف شو راح تقول يعني. Let alone ناهيك عنه how you are going to say it. أحيانا ما تقدر تفكر ناهيك إنك تتكلم. So there are some strategies you can use to deal with this situation. واحد, start with the memorized set phrase. يعني حاول انك تبدا بالدiscussions either part number 1 or part number 3. حاول انك تبدا بعباره well, this is a very interesting question. Oh, I never thought about this question before. Oh, this is a very difficult question. Can you give me a moment to think? You're asking me about blah blah blah. Well, to be honestly ابدا بجمل لا تبدا تتكلم كذا. Off the top of my head, I would say, well, it is difficult to say, but that's an interesting question. And I think I would have to say that I'm not really sure, but like this. ابدأ بهن وأنا عارف إنه الآن أنتم متوترين، لكن مع الأيام والممارسة وعندما ترجع على الملفات تحفظ جمل أكيد راح تسبيك إنك تكون عندك أفضل. That's an interesting question, and I think I would have to say that I'm not really sure about, but actually that's not something I have really thought about, but I don't really know much about that, but like this. I don't really know much about that, but هذه كلها عبارات حاول تحفظ ثنتين أو جملة أو جملتين على الأقل. هذا أول واحدة من الطرق اللي هي strategies. حاول إنك تستخدم عبارات. الثاني, ask the question to be rephrased. الطريقة الثانية إذا شفت إنه مثلا ما قدرت تفهم السؤال حاول قدر الإمكان إنك تخبر الإكزامينر أنه يعيد لك السؤال مرة أخرى أو يعيد صياغة السؤال. Another way to buy time, وأيضا طريقة ثانية إنك تشتري وقت إنك تستطيع تتكلم. To pretend that you didn't understand that question and ask the examiner to rephrase. دعي إنك ما فهمت السؤال. أنا عارف ربما تفهمه لكن ادعي أنك لم تفهم عشان تعطي نفسك مجال للتفكير. While the examiner is doing this, you can think about what you want to say. This won't lower your grade unless you do it repeatedly, in which case it is going to start to lower your score for vocab. You could say something like, I'm sorry, I didn't quite catch that. Could you please rephrase it? صياغتها مرة ثانية. طبعا هو يبدأ يقول السؤال وأنت تفكر إيش ممكن تجيب على السؤال. What are you going to say about it? طيب, the types of questions that will be asked, for example, in part number 3, maybe different kinds of comparing, predicting, for example, advantages, disadvantages, problems, solutions, opinion, and so on. هذه أنواع الأسئلة. Okay. Part number 1, actually, it is what WH questions, yes or no questions. Do you like, dislike, for example, what kinds of كذا. Here, predicting advantages, problems, solutions, and so on. Different kinds of, if there is like a question, different kinds of. This is a very common first question in this part of the test. It is question like, what are some of the different kinds of shops in your country? Note carefully here. Avoid just repeating the information or the language that you use in part number 2. يعني الأشياء اللي قلتها في part number 2 حاول إنك تستبعدها أو تتجنبها وحاول إنك تركز على أشياء جديدة في part number 3. This is because it will not show the examiner anything new and not give them any new, for example, rateable language. In addition, another common mistake that people make is to just give one kind of shop, but the question clearly asks for more than one kind of shop. So I suggest the following approach. مثلا, what are some of the different kinds of shops in your country? Well, there are a wide range of places to go shopping. تبدأ كده. Well, there are a wide range of places to go shopping. One of the most popular types is, and then you give the first one. I think this is because blah, blah, blah. Another, then you talk. I guess this might be because, and then you give, like for example. فممكن تستخدم هذه الكلوزز أو phrases في البداية. إذا قال لك مثلا what kinds of، أول ما يقول لك what kinds of، قل there are a wide range of places, there are a wide range of, for example, malls, there are like a wide range of anything, sports, about whatever. وبعدين on the top, or one of the most popular types is, I think this is because. Another, I guess this is might be because. هكذا. فالsteps to answer the question، أولاً paraphrase the question، أعد صياغة السؤال أو يعني تلاعب شوي. قل well, there are a wide range of places to go shopping. هذا واحد. Introduce the first type and perhaps a reason. أعطى الفقرة الأولى وبعدين نجيب سبب. مثلاً one of the most popular types is, I think this is because. بعدين تضع السبب. بعدين قدم سبب ثاني. Introduce the second أو قدم النوع الثاني. Introduce the second type and then give a reason. Another popular place that people in my country enjoy shopping at is, I guess this is might be because, and then you give the second. هذا أيضا طريقة كويسة. إذا في المقدمة في الانترودكشن عندما تجيب على أي سؤال ممكن تقول well there are a wide range of. خلاص يكفي هذا. الباقيات مو ضروري، خذ واحد يكفي. عندما تقدم a first type, you can say one of the most popular types is, or probably the most common is. A second type, you can say another trendy option is, many people are also keen on. Given reasons, عندما تعطي أسباب راح تقول مثلا I think this is because, or I guess this might be because. تفضل الاثنين. هنا طبعا السمري you just return back to for example the file. The words that you might need to memorize, like in part number 3, nouns, for example, accessory, like boutique, garment, fabric, fitting room, outfit. The meaning are like the meaning of the words is here. The verb actually accessorize, dress up, and flaunt, like show off. Go out of the style, become like unfashionable. Try on clothes to check like whether clothing fits. In, for example, vogue means to become fashionable, to become like fashionable. This is like verbs. Adjectives, we have like casual, we have formal. I think these words you're familiar with. Elegant means stylish, elegant. Gorgeous, beautiful. Outrageous, like unusual and rather shocking. Trendy means popular. الكلمات هذا حاولوا تحفظون. Idioms أيضا معكم مصطلحات مثلا all dressed up means dressed in one's best clothes. We got all dressed up to attend the party. We got all dressed up to attend the party. Number 2, dressed to kill means wearing stylish clothes that will attract like the attention. Nicole Kidman turned up at Oscars dressed to kill. Dressed to kill. Fit like a glove. To fit like, for example, perfectly. My new jeans fit like a glove. The last one, the in thing, means fashionable. This summer, baggy jeans are the in thing, means fashionable. So these also idioms need to be memorized. So here we have part number 1, like you will be asked, this is like the first one, the first set, like let's talk about clothing. Let's talk about shoes. Let's move on, discuss shopping for clothes. Then you'll move to part number 2. This is the question, describe an item of clothing you purchased that you didn't like. Then part number 3, now let's talk about clothes. What kind of clothes do people in your country usually wear? You will be asked 2 sets. This is the first set, and this is the second set. And each set has maybe 3 questions. Okay. غدا إن شاء الله